We'll call the June 11th, 2009 Finance Committee to order. At this time, please rise. We'll have the invocation followed by the pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Father. We ask you to grant us wisdom, Lord God. Guide us in our decision-making, Father, in these tough economic times, Lord, as we look and forecast our business here in Ascension Parish. We ask you blessings on our employees, Lord God, blessings on the administrative committees of the parish, and we ask blessings on our council and parish president. We ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Suzanne. Absent is Councilman Scheck-Snyder, Councilman Adrian Thompson, Councilman Dipsy Lambert, Councilman Chris Lohr, and Councilman Randy Cluott. All others present do secure a quorum. We will move to agenda item number 3, Chair's addition. I do have one gentleman in front of you. It is a bid that was taken and accepted in on Centricom Gold Series Elite Console. I will entertain a motion to add it to the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Pat Bell. Do I have any opposition? Hearing on no opposition, Chair declares unanimous and dispense with the roll call. We will move now. Well, let's put that. Let's put that under bid items number 11. We'll put that under the aerial spraying. We'll move now to agenda item number 4, public comment. Anyone wishing to make a public comment here, please sign a comment card and give it to Ms. Suzanne, and you will be allotted 3 minutes for your agenda item. Move now to the Lamar Dixon report. Mr. Eddie Crawford with SMG.
Good evening, Council. You should all have our April financial report before you. That page number 1 is our comparative statement. Gives you the information that has happened over the 46 months of this lease at this time. As you can see down there at the bottom, we have $111,975 in cash and investments. Our fund balance as of April 30th was $234,918. Page 2, as you can see, first half of the page shows the highlights for the month of April. As you look down the mid page, we have a positive variance of $25,735 for that month. We had some good events coming in. The St. Jude Bass Tournament, second year there, did better than expected. They also had a record attendance that year, so we're hoping that will continue to grow with us. Some of the other events are listed there. Page 3 also gives you some further highlights for the month. Again, the RV, the non-event RV hookups are certainly holding strong for us. We look for that to stay true through the end of June 30th. Page 4, financial statement highlights for the 4 months. The first 2 columns there will show you where we've stood for the month. The third column, as you move to the right, will show you where we're projecting to be by June 30th of 2009. Looks like we'll finish up that period with a $73,000 positive variance. So we've got a good cushion at this point. Page 5, again, kind of is a combined income statement. The first 3 columns you see there from the left are basically reiterate the month of April. The other 3 columns moving to the right will show you where we are year-to-date actual, year-to-date budget. As you go down, the highlighted numbers will the last row of highlighted numbers show our combined efforts here. As you can see over there, we have a positive variance at this time of $247,472. A very good number. We're about $126,000 better than we were in 2008. So finishing this period fairly strong. Our balance sheet is page 6. And then page 7 shows our accounts receivables. again, working with administration to try to get some of these numbers cleared up, and we should have some answers for you in probably about a week or so. Moving forward, we're working with the administration right now to try to recover some of the events that we have for the second half of this year. We are working quickly to try to get some of these things back on the books. We have a large RV trade show that we've managed to recapture, the Louisiana Sportsman Show, I guess that's in the spring of, could be 2010. Will come back with us. We're working on 2 large equestrian events. Looks like we're going to make those happen. One will be in October, one will be in September. We are talking with a group right now that could possibly come in and rent the commissary. So we're just keeping negotiations open there. We did win the bid for the 2010 and 2011 high school rodeo finals, as well as the junior high school rodeo finals. So that'll be, the high school rodeo finals have now been with us. This will be 6 years. And the junior high school is coming to us for the first time. That will be, those 2 events will be in June of next year. As I said, we're working to try to move forward for the next 6 months, preparing a budget for you. We'll have that to you next week. And finally, the high school rodeo finals for this year are starting. They'll start up Sunday and they'll run for a week. About 400 competitors and their families will come to town and spend some time with us. That's our report for April. Any questions?
Yes, any questions of Mr. Crawford? I'm sorry, Parish President.
I need to find out on those RV hookups, how many of those have been there 6 months or more?
I'll find out for you.
And let me know a number.
Any other questions, Mr. Crawford? Mr. Lambert?
I don't have none for Mr. Crawford, but the parish president. I guess since we're running in close to the end of the lease term, I guess I'm wondering how the funds are in place to, purchase it. Because I think in the budget we just had up to June, right? As far as out of parish funds, the rest is about the donations. Or the donations in place, ready to move forward with the operation of the facility?
We have to wait till the bill of sale is final. We're still working with the foundation and working out some different options in the sale agreement. Once we do that, then we can invoke our money to get our money from the federal government, because we got to have the bill of sale there to actually get that money. And on private donation, no, I haven't until we sign the dotted line. I'm not going to accept any donations or anything else. And I mean, something could go wrong here. Okay. Not that I expect anything, but we hadn't signed yet, and until that act of sale is signed, I'd really not want to get into that. Okay. And I don't think we can legally do it as far as getting the federal money. The first year, all we expected to get is all we have to pay is $250,000. That's not what we're going to do. In September, we'll get the $4.5 million from GOSEP, from the recovery money. Senator Amadei has assured me that he's got $1.8 million secured. He may be a couple $100,000 short, but he said he'd get that next year. So it's okay. We got a payout period here.
So the purchasing of it is pretty secure, but I'm still looking at the operation. If we end June 30th and we don't have anything set,
right,
to move forward.
Once we sign that paper, I will just take the donations until then, and I'll give you a report on that time.
Appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Mr. Joseph, Councilman Joseph.
Yes. I just want, we are operating right now in the black, correct?
Right now, year to date, negative $10,000. We're in the red, $10,000.
On page 4, that's $10,429. That's as of April 30th.
First 4 months with $10,000.
Correct.
This month looks good.
This month looks good. May looks good. June looks pretty good. We should finish strong.
And livestock show is also coming back in January.
Livestock show, that's correct.
Okay. So I'm telling you, we can Thank you, Senator. They're very close. Once we secure it and be able to get these repetitive customers.
Good.
Anything else, Councilman Joseph?
No, that's all I want.
Councilman Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eddie, with the $109,000 receivables that are still out, what is our plans? I mean, if we have that in, this $10,000 goes.
I think
Goes away.
the bulk of it is will probably be some kind of FEMA money, the National Guard, and things like that. Again, we're working with the administration to try to sort out how do we proceed there.
How about this YMCA?
Same thing with the parish, we'll work with
Okay.
them.
Right. We'd really look good if all that was in.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Yes.
One more question.
Councilman Lamb.
City of Gonzales, any confirmation on there?
And visit, have a meeting scheduled Monday morning at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to come up with me, Dennis, if you want to attend that meeting.
Oh, yeah.
9 o'clock Monday morning, John.
Thank you.
Any other? Thank you, Mr. Crawford.
Appreciate it.
Move on now to agenda item number 6, monthly contract report. CAO, Mr. Cedric Grant. Mr. Grant.
Councilman, in your packet is the monthly contract report, and during the month of May, we entered into 14 agreements, either public bid or professional services, all of which, in my review, have come through the council for consideration, and are just basically us just signing up the agreements. If you have any questions about any of the particular agreements, I'll be happy to answer them, but most of them are pretty standard renewals and basic business of the parish. The largest being a public bid on the Roddy Road bridge project at $707,000, which was a public bid that was brought to transportation and to the council.
Any questions of Mr. Grant? Thank you, Mr. Grant. Move into the financial reports. Agenda item number 7, the 2009 millage review with the 2009 millage ordinance. Ms. Gwen LeBlanc.
Thank you, Chairman Valentine, and good evening, members of the Finance Committee, President Martinez. You have before you your 2009 millage review booklet. The council, as a governing authority of the parish, has two major functions to fulfill during this time frame. The first one is you have to adopt your own millages as authorized by the parish council, and second, you sit as a board of review to adopt the total Ascension Parish millage, which includes all the taxing districts in the parish. This process begins in June and ends with the acceptance of the tax roll by the Louisiana Tax Commission, and that usually happens in November. This is not a reassessment year, but regardless, you are required by law to adopt your millage on an annual basis, and of course, to us by ordinance. After we review this process, I would like to request that you put the introduction of the ordinance at your June 18th meeting and call for the public hearing and adoption of the ordinance at the July 2nd meeting. So if you'll open your booklets to page 1, these are the procedures for the parish council to levy parish government taxing districts millages, and we give the legal authority at the top. And of course, as per our charter, we adopt this by ordinance. We introduce the ordinance at a public meeting. It has to be in writing. You call for the public hearing. The public hearing has notice requirements. We shall abide by the open meetings law and our home rule charter, which is at least 1 week publication prior to the council meeting. The council then conducts your public hearing. Thereafter, you adopt your ordinance. Because this is not a reassessment year, it only requires a majority of the members of the council, and they have publication requirements too. Thereafter, it shall be published within 10 days after adoption in our official journal, unless vetoed by the parish president. That's in accordance with our home rule charter. The effective date is as prescribed in the ordinance, but not earlier than 5 days after publication in our official journal. And then this ordinance, by state law, requires an affidavit that's required by Secretary Patterson And it was a legislative audit law that was passed in 2000, and it has to be submitted to the assessor along with the ordinance levying our millages. Now, because this is not reassessment year, we'll just go ahead and turn to page 2. So after we adopt our millages and send them certified to the assessor, the parish council, as the governing authority of the parish, sits as a board of review and certifies the tax roll for the entire parish and as prepared and presented by the assessor. And if you turn to attachment B, which is just after page 3, after the ordinance, is the attachment B, you can see we go through a quick review of the process for the council to sit as a board of review. The assessor is required by law to duly advertise that the assessment roll for Ascension Parish is available for public review for the required 15-day period. The assessor will certify the parish tax roll to the Board of Review, which is the council, within 3 days of final exposure date. This is the first appeal process that we go through. The taxpayers of Ascension Parish are given the opportunity to resolve any disputes on their assessment as released and put in the public notice by the assessor. Now, if the taxpayers still agree with the assessor, they can then file a written appeal to the Board of Review, the council, during this time period that you're sitting as a Board of Review. This is the second appeal process to you at the Board of Review hearing. Then the Board of Review, the council will meet notice requirements for this hearing process and sit in a Board of Review hearing to receive any appeals to the property assessments duly filed in accordance with law. You know, they have to go through the legal procedures and meet the legal requirements to appeal to the Board of Review. And then thereafter, you hear all the public comments. You will certify the assessment roll with any changes thereto, and that goes to the Louisiana Tax Commission, the assessor, and any taxpayer who files a written appeal. This is the third appeal process. The taxpayers and/or the assessor, if you rule in favor of a taxpayer, may dispute your decision to the Louisiana Tax Commission within a designated time frame and also on a designated form as also outlined in state law. The fourth appeal process is either the taxpayer or the assessor, if they're not satisfied at the Louisiana Tax Commission, may appeal to the district court in accordance with guidelines established by law, and the appeal process may continue up to the Supreme Court if necessary. Now, normal basis, during that first appeal process, disputes are settled between the assessor and the taxpayers. If not, that's when you would see a taxpayer at the Board of Review. Okay, so if we go back to page 2, after that process, a quietus is issued. The parish receives an annual audit from the sheriff's auditor for the tax collector agency fund of the sheriff. Once received, the treasurer of the parish will issue a quietus to the assessor on behalf of all taxing districts, which states that the sheriff, as the tax collector, has exhibited satisfactory evidence that all taxes due as shown on the ad valorem tax rolls of Ascension Parish for the current year have been paid or accounted for. And when I get that, I usually get a statement from the sheriff's auditor to confirm this quietus. Now, just a review of your taxing district millages. We've listed them, and then this is the 2008 millage. I have 7, but it's 8. The expiration dates, you have your the parish tax, 2.86. It's a constitutional tax, so it's perpetual. And of course, in the 2 cities, our parish tax reduces to half. The health and mental health each have a 2 mill tax, and that's parish-wide. And you can see their expiration dates. Mental health is coming up next year, as well as the 2 library millages. They have 2 issues. There'll be two propositions on the ballot. One is a 4.2 mil and one is a 2.6 mil. And they both expire in 2010. And then our 7 lighting districts, they all have 5 mills, except, well, Lighting District 2 has 1, as you can see, but we do not access the full 5 mills because it only has required 1 mill to meet their expenditures. The reason being is that this lighting district preceded the chemical industry that later located there, so their millage is still applied to these chemical industries, and plus there's very little homestead exemption in that area. It's mostly industrial. So continuing on 3, you can see the 3 through 7 lighting districts with their 5 mills. 2012, all expiration date, all except 7, which is 2014. East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District, 5 mills, and that's the entire side of the east side of the parish, including the 2 municipalities of Sorrento and Donaldsonville. And their millage expires, which was just renewed last year, 2018. West Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District comprises all of the area on the west side of the parish, including Donaldsonville, and they have 2 issues also. And theirs also expires in 2010, as you can see, so that'll be 2 more propositions, 5.33 mills and 4.67 mills. Parish Council Agent, this is a parish-wide millage, 1.5 mills, and it expires in 2013. And Fire District Number 3 just comprises the district of Fire District Number 3 is created by the council, 10 mills. That one, theirs expires in 2014. And Utilities District Number 1 is on the entire west side of the parish, 10 mills. It expires in 2031. So all millages are for 10 years except the constitutional millage for the general fund. The 4.6 mill millage for West Ascension Consolidated Drainage District is a 5-year renewal, and the Utilities District Number 1 is a 25-year mill. And just some facts that you might find interesting. Just an ad valorem is the definition according to value. Taxes are assessed a dollar amount according to the property value by the assessor. 1 mill equals 1/10 of a penny. In 2008, 1 mill parish-wide yielded $777,816, and in the rural areas only, outside of the 3 municipalities, it would yield $679,381. All of our parish taxes are subject to homestead exemption, and that's the taxable value equals the fair market value less homestead exemption. The cities taxes are not subject to homestead exemption. Property is assessed in 3 categories, 1 being real property, which is land and immovables. All land is assessed at 10% of fair market value. Residential buildings, 10% of fair market value. Commercial buildings, 15% of fair market value. Second, personal property. That includes movables like equipment, furniture, inventory. That's assessed at 15% of fair market value. And third category is the public service property, which is utilities. That's 25% of fair market value. And our assessor, or any assessor in the state, does not assess this. This is assessed by the Louisiana Tax Commission. So the next page is that ordinance that we would like for you to consider. And of course, the millages is just as I stated, and it's all the parish authorized taxing districts.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we send it to the full council.
Second.
For introduction.
Motion by Councilman Lambert to put on the agenda for June 18th.
Okay.
Second by Councilman Bell. Any discussion? Any questions, Ms. Gwynn, in this discussion? Hearing no discussion. Any opposition? No opposition. Ms. Suzanne, please place this on the agenda for June 18th.
And Mr. Chairman, I have just the 2 in the back. If you want to know how much these millages will yield, the 2 charts in the back. The second to last one shows the parish authorized taxes and taxing districts and how much each one would yield. And this is based on the most current information we have, which is a 2008 millage. Obviously, we haven't calculated the 2009 yet or received the recapitulation from the assessor. So, just to go around, you can see the percent that each district represents of the total of our taxing districts. with East Ascension Drainage receiving 20% of our ad valorem taxes collected, and our two health and mental health units receiving 17, and parish government 11, and 10% from fire district number 3, and you can just go on around the pie chart for informational purposes. The total amount collected in 2008 was $18,364,661. That's right under the title. And then the last chart is all the taxing districts in the parish, and based on 2008 property taxes, also the latest available. The total collected in our parish for property taxes in '08 was $83,276,894. And the same thing, if you would like to know, how each taxing district collects and what percent of the total, you can go around that pie chart and see. And of course, the school board collects the largest slice of that pie at $47.9 million. And by comparison, if you want to find government, it's at the top left-hand corner. We collect 2% of all property taxes collected in Ascension Parish. So it's informational purposes.
Good, thank you. I urge all the councilmen to keep this as a resource tool. It's a very good pie chart that you can use when you get asked questions that you can refer to. Thank you, Ms. Gwynn.
And if any member has any questions, later on, just always give me a call. I'll be glad to discuss it.
Thank you very much.
You're
We'll
welcome.
move now to agenda item number 8, the sales and use tax report. Ms. Gwynn.
Okay, you have your regular report in front of you. This is the collection month of May, which represents April sales. If you look in the middle column for our first sales tax district, which is East Ascension Drainage, is half-cent sales tax. Once again, this is a sales tax that's collected on the entire east side of the parish, including the 2 municipalities. And you can see May collections in '09 compared to May collections in '08 are down. And year-to-date is still up. And our sales tax rural district number 1, which is all the rural areas of the parish, excluding the 3 municipalities, except when a tax sharing agreement has been signed. The May collections are down in our rural areas also, and still up to date, year-to-date are still up. And the half-cent rural sales tax district follows the boundaries of our 1 cent, and it's excluding the 3 municipalities unless there's a tax sharing agreement. The May comparisons to May '08 are down. Year-to-date, they're still up. And by budgetary comparisons, you can see on the far right-hand side, as far as comparing it to the budget, we're still positive also. I guess comments last October, I reported that after the holiday season, we may begin experiencing flat or lower collections. Lower collections on a month-to-month basis compared to '08 are now a reality. Year-to-date comparison to year-to-date or '08 are still positive, and budgetary comparisons are still positive. So on the second page is that 1 cent sales tax chart. It's year-to-date, January to May, '08 versus '09. '09 is the red, blue is '08. You can see that consumer retail is still up by 9.7% year-to-date. Motor vehicles has been down and continues to be down 12% year-to-date. And business-to-business is down 15.2%, and the petrochemical industry is still positive year-to-date over '08. Plus 10.9%. And then the pie chart that is on the third page is, once again, it represents just our 1 cent sales tax. It's year-to-date, January to May '09. What it is just an unscientific depiction of where our sales taxes, what sector we're deriving our sales taxes. You can see the largest piece of this pie is the petrochemical industry and their suppliers at 51%. And consumer retail at 33%, motor vehicles 11%, and business-to-business 5%. This was prepared by our authority just to give the council an idea of where your sales taxes are being derived from and what sectors in the parish. The last one is a historical chart. We have all three of our districts. East Ascension is at the top. You can see that we compared '09 to '09 of each year through since 1999. And you can see that, as we stated a little before, we're still, a little bit ahead of '08. And if you notice, the yellows generally follow the peak and valleys of the total year. And then our sales tax, you can see, and our sales tax district 1, and then the last one is sales tax district number 2. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions of Ms. Gwynn on the sales tax report? Parish President Martinez.
I don't have any questions, but I got a few comments. Just looking at this, if you look at the drainage tax overall, it's only up a little bit over 3% for the year. A couple more bad months, we're going to go below projections there probably. So, we've been meeting with Mr. Rue, and we've been discussing some things. Also, as this hopefully doesn't continue at this pace, at this rate, but we're going to take the necessary steps to continue to cut our expenses as time goes on. So we'll take care of it. We'll make sure that we stay above the water. But the one that I'm really kind of worried about right now is the Ascension major drainage, for two reasons. One is this, and the other is that the yield that we're getting on bonds is really, really low. What did we collect last month, Ms. LeBlanc? Do you have that about?
A little over $400.
About $400, and the year before we had collected like $890,000, I think, for the entire year.
Yeah.
And some of that's pledged, to go back into the repayment of the bond. So, as we go through this and as we watch this, Ascension drainage is definitely one that we're going to have to watch closely and monitor.
Any comments? Parish President, I would say that we need to watch it all, since we're down 14% on sales tax for the parish also, which we really should be doing some soul searching and tightening of the belt, and I'm sure you guys are doing that, and hopefully that we can keep our head above water as we are no longer insulated in Louisiana or Ascension Parish. That we do see the reaction that they see across the country. And so we will make sure that we weather the storm. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, Revenue and Expenditure Report. Assistant Treasurer Amanda Barat. Ms. Barat.
Good evening. This is the report as of April of 2009. We're at 33% of the year. Overall revenues are at 33.16%. The operating budget revenues are at 35.04%, and your capital project budget's at 13.80%. The items that are highlighted in green are items that are under the budget at this time. We're monitoring those. Most of them are due to interest allocation. We don't do that to the end of the year, and some of it, the sales tax funds are under the budget, but they only actually reflect 3 months of revenue, because the January revenues that were collected was accrued back to our 2008, so they're in our 2008 revenues. And that also affects the related funds that's funded by those sales taxes. The next page is a report on your expenditure budgets, and you can see your operating budget's at 31.73%. Your capital project budget's at 22.88%, and your grand total at this point of the year is 29.45%. The funds that's highlighted in green are the ones that are over the budget at this time, and most of them are due to encumbrances, but you can see your total overall expenditures are below the 33% mark at this time of the year. We are monitoring the ones that are over the budget and processing budget amendments if necessary. The next page is just a chart that reflects the budget compared to the operating expenses and capital project expenses for both revenues and expenditures. The next 2 pages is just a little bit more detailed explanation of the funds that were highlighted in green on the revenue and expenditures. And I don't have the report that shows the listing of the checks that were over 100,000, but I do apologize, and we'll mail that out to y'all tomorrow. And that is it, unless you have any questions.
Any questions of Ms. Barai? Hearing none, thank you, Ms. Barai. We'll move to agenda item number 10, 2009 Budget Amendment number 3, Assistant Treasurer Dawn Cabral.
Good evening. What you have before you is an ordinance for Budget Amendment number 3, and it reads as follows: an ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2009 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 20th day of November 2008. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2009 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. The operating budget. Within the general fund, under revenues, we have intergovernmental grants. The first grant is for the Louisiana Recovery Authority Generator Grant in the amount of $225,055. The second item is a grant for the 2009 Emergency Management Performance Grant in the amount of $53,635. Under expenditures, we have intergovernmental grants in the amount of $278,690, which is to fund the above-mentioned revenues for those grants. Appropriations, we have capital area legal services, and this is due to an increase per the council motion on April 2nd, 2009 in the amount of $10,000. For general administration, health, life, and dental, we have an item to transfer $33,000 from general administration to the executive department for the same related expenditure, which is health, life, and dental. This is just moving money from one department to the other. On the next page, we have the Road and Bridge Fund. Under revenues for intergovernmental grants, we have the Household Hazardous Materials Grant for $42,000, and we have Keep Louisiana Beautiful Grant for $12,000. For expenditures for appropriations and grants, to expense the above grants in the amount of $51,000. The Health Unit Fund for the Animal Shelter. Expenditures, we have appropriations and grants for the Humane Society in the amount of $2,228. Homeland Security Grant Fund. For revenues, under intergovernmental grants, we have the 2008 Citizen Corp Grant for $15,000. The 2009 Hazardous Materials Emergency Planning Grant for $26,332. The 2008 State Appropriations Subscriber Unit for $63,731. The 2008 Louisiana Act 19 for $46,875. The 2008 Interoperable Emergency Communications for $15,266. Under expenditures for the above-mentioned intergovernmental grants, we have the 2008 Citizen Corp for $15,000, the 2009 Hazardous Materials Emergency Planning for $26,332, the 2008 State Appropriations Subscriber Unit for $63,731, Louisiana Act 19, which is a 2008 grant, $46,875, and the 2008 Interoperable Emergency Communications for $15,266. If you have any questions concerning these grants, Martha Collins is here and will be happy to answer any of those questions.
Moved by Councilman Johnson.
A second.
Second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any discussion, any questions? Any opposition? Hearing no opposition, Item passes. Ms. Suzanne, please place on the June 18th agenda. Okay, we'll move on to bid items. Purchasing Director, Ms. Joan Shivers. Agenda item number 11, Charleston Road Project, aerial spraying for the mosquitoes, and of course the item we added, the Centricom Gold Series Elite. Ms. Shivers.
On May 26, 2009, the Purchasing Department received 2 bids for the Charleston Road Drainage Rehabilitation Project. The bids were received from A&A Cable Contractors and Bow Brothers Construction Company, LLC. After review, the Purchasing Department and East Ascension Drainage recommend accepting the lowest qualified bid from A&A Cable Contractors.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Bell.
Second.
Second by Councilman Dennis Cullen. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved. Please place on the agenda. Ms. Shivers.
On May 26, 2009, the Purchasing Department received 1 request for proposal for aerial spraying for mosquito control. The RFP was received from Vector Disease Control Incorporated. The RFP Review Committee recommends accepting the proposal from Vector Disease Control Incorporated.
Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Dennis Cullen. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
On June 10, 2009, the Purchasing Department received 1 bid for a Centricom Gold Series Elite Console. The bid was received from IMCO Technologies, an authorized agent of Motorola Incorporated. After review, the Purchasing Department and Office of Homeland Security recommend accepting the lowest qualified bid from IMCO Technologies.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Benny Johnson, second by Councilman Dennis Cullen. Any discussion?
One question, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir.
I guess Mr. Webb would be the one to answer this. Rick, what are we going to, this is for your office, I'm assuming, and what are we using it for? Just like a dispatch station, like they have in 911 center?
Yep.
Dr. Johnson, it's identical to a dispatch station that's in the 911 center. One's going into the Tactical Operations Center for APSO, one's going to the Emergency Operations Center, but it's the same console that's in the 911 center.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, so moved. Okay, we'll move now to funding requests. Agenda item number 12, Juvenile Accountability Block Grant. Grants Officer, Ms. Martha Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, President Martinez. Each year, the DA's office, which is now Ricky Babin is the district attorney, requests of the parish first to participate with this block grant. We are currently splitting the fee for the grant, which we're asked to match is $11,111. Our portion is $740.64. And we would ask the...
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Pat Bell. Discussion? Any opposition? So moved. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, sir.
We'll move now to general business. Agenda item number 13, discussion revenue estimating. CAO, Mr. Cedric Grant. Mr. Grant.
Councilman, I've been working on this for a bit with Councilman Lohr in the taxing authority. This is a direct result of an audit finding that we've had for a couple of years that has suggested that we go to a multi-year budgeting exercise so we could have a better sense of our revenues going forward. In order to do that, we need to do a much better job of forecasting. We get our monthly reports, and as we've seen tonight, we are beginning to be concerned, but we need to have a much greater sense of that going forward. So I've been working with Dr. James Richardson, who happens to be the economist that sits on the Louisiana Revenue Estimating Conference and is an expert in this field. And he was due to be here tonight, but has gone on to New Orleans for other meetings. So I'm going to give his presentation to you. And my suggestion that's coming out of this is simple. I think it's something that we need to begin to look at. I think we need to, in conjunction with all of the tax recipient bodies, begin to get our heads into the forecasting game of revenues. We're not as dependent on certain sources of revenues, such as the state, which is very much dependent on oil and gas revenue, and that really kind of drives their revenue estimate. But ours being sales and use tax and property tax, we really need to get much more sophisticated about our predictions, and so we can begin to plan. So as you can see, the presentation before you and in your packet is from Dr. Richardson, and he's the alumni professor of economics at Louisiana State University, and as I said, a member of the Louisiana Revenue Estimating Conference since 1987. Why forecast? Every decision we make today is based on some decision that it's going to affect us tomorrow and beyond. And as he indicates here in the National Advisory Council for State and Local Budgeting, everyone is now saying that we need multi-year budget projections to begin to see where we are and where we're going. The government must maintain an in-depth understanding of its sources of revenue, and we have to understand the potential changes in that revenue stream in the base. We do it in a way now, but we probably need to do it in a better way. The Louisiana Revenue Estimating Conference, and they meet quarterly, and it's in the Constitution. And there's 4 members. The governor is designated Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, and a private economist from the university, and that's Dr. Richardson. They must have a unanimous vote. They receive a report from the State Department of Revenues and Division of Administration that presents them with an estimate. They vote on that estimate, and the state cannot spend $1 more than is estimated by the Revenue Estimating Conference. Okay. It has kept the budget in check many years that people want to go over that estimate. It provides short-term and long-term forecasts for the upcoming fiscal year, and it's forecasted on what the state budget is based. And it's a 3-year forecast beyond the upcoming fiscal year. And I want to qualify that in that if we would try to do what the State Revenue Estimating Conference is doing, it's like going to Mars. Okay, they're looking at multiple sources of revenue. They're looking at, as I said, the state revenue estimate is based primarily on oil and gas. Okay, and just to give you a tidbit of information, they set the estimate at $55 a barrel. Okay, so now it's over the estimate. Okay, and last year was way over the estimate, but now the state is dealing with that $1.3 billion deficit based on that $55 estimate in 10 to 12 months of below $55 oil. Okay, and that's how they get to the deficit that they're dealing with. There are other governmental organizations that do revenue estimating that is much more real and much more certain in the kind that we need to do. And one is the Revenue Estimating Conference it's in the city of New Orleans. And the membership of that is the mayor, the chief administrative officer, the chief financial officer, member of the city council, and a private economist. Again, private economist sitting as a board of the Revenue Estimating Conference. And what they do is update the comprehensive 5-year financial forecast of the general fund, incorporating the city's fiscal policies, expenditure patterns, revenue trends, fund balances, and known financial impacts, all of which you see on a recurring basis, but not collectively. And the goal here would be to kind of frame that collectively in a way that we could present it to you on a quarterly basis, and at least, I would suggest at least mid-year, validate those revenue estimates. And as we're sitting here right now, and the president is telling you, we're going through the belt tightening, okay, right now, but we want to also be able to base that on where we think we're going to be hitting in the out years. The kinds of sources we'd be looking at is all of our general sales and the things that you looked at tonight, motor vehicle sales tax and that kind of thing, property taxes, other taxes and revenues that might come to the parish. The key to this revenue estimating process is everybody's got to be at the table. As the governing authority, I would suggest and recommend that you would be the ones that would be the ones making the call, just as you said, as the board of review. But there's no way that you can't do it without the input of the school district and the input of the other major tax recipient bodies in the parish, the library board and the like. But at the end of the day, I think they would all feel a great deal more comfort if they had a sense of where they were going in year 1, year 2, and year 3. So why are we forecasting? As we said, every decision we make today is based on some vision of what the world will look like tomorrow and beyond. What I believe we're going to see in this process is stability in our ability to predict how we can provide public services in the future. And we'll see a trend analysis in our tax climate. I think if we've looked at some information here earlier in the year about where our taxes are going and coming in, they're rather cyclical. I mean, we're in a recession. I expect that we'll be seeing these declines, but as Ms. LeBlanc reported to you last month, those were the first declines in about almost 2 years to the day. We need to be able to see that and project that going out. And I think that what I'm suggesting here is that we begin the process of developing some type of revenue estimating system. I would like to come back to you with a strategy on a revenue estimating conference. The next step for me is to go to the Sales Tax Authority and engage them in this process. I would suggest that we want to retain an economist that can give us a realistic forecast on at least a quarterly, if not a biannually basis, so we can begin to estimate our revenues on out. And this does address the audit finding that we've had over the last few years of the need to now begin to look at multi-year budgeting.
Okay, good. Any questions of our CAO, Ms. Grant? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Grant, in your opinion, as far as with what we deal with, is quarterly better compared to biannually, or what do you see as far as forecasting out with that?
I think that we need to begin the process quarterly and see if that rights itself and we begin to see trends, and then maybe we can step back to a biannual basis. But I think as you see here, we've just kind of in the middle of the second quarter, we're beginning to see declines. We've got enough trend data to begin to tell us and show us a picture. And I think what you're going to see is that as you look at it, what I'm hoping the economist tells us is what we can think is going to happen 2 years from now. I mean, that's we've got to start looking at what we think is going to happen. And quite honestly, as you saw in my presentation, effects and policy changes. I mean, it's clear to me that the sectors of the economy that we are dependent on, we need to incentivize sales tax collections. So as you look at your planning and zoning decisions, and you look at any of the other things that we would do in policy, we would want to incentivize the thing that has the most growth potential in relation to the revenue bases and revenue sources that we have. It's not, for us right now, for the way this tax structure is, it's not necessarily property tax. It may well be down the line. You may need to change that policy determination based on where we see the trends in growth in property tax. But at this point, if I had to make the call today, I'd say I'm doing everything I need to do to incentivize sales tax so we could continue to grow that sector of our revenue.
And the other question I have, what kind of time frame do you estimate before we can get started if everything goes through to start doing this? How long before we can get started with it?
I think we can have this in place as we go into the next budget cycle in 2010. So I would finish the process off, bring you the recommendations for a vote by the end of the year and establish it in the January budget.
And I think with this being the information we have with us today, it sounds like a good tool that we can use and put forward to estimate our revenue so we can have a better picture going forward as to what we need to do financially to keep our programs going that we have. So I'd like to see this move forward.
And Dr. Richardson would be happy to come to any other subsequent meeting and discuss this in further detail.
Thank you, Council.
I think what we really needed, at this time is to have Cedric get with the taxing authority, get with other bodies there, and we need to do this on a joint basis and all work together toward projecting those revenues because we're all affected by it. So I think that's what tonight, basically, what we're saying, that we want to take that next step.
Okay. Any other discussion? Thank you. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 14, bond refunding resolution. I do not have anything in front of me. Mr. Lohr had that. Does Ms. LeBlanc, do you know anything?
No, all I know is I think he invited Mr. Ted Jones and Malcolm here to discuss this, and that's basically, he was supposed to be here to handle it.
Mr. Malcolm Dugas, our bonding attorney. Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you, Chairman. What this is back in March of this year, the council passed a resolution authorizing the refunding of some bonds that were issued in 2001. with the provision that we had to obtain a minimum savings of $350,000. Since that time, Ted has gone out into the market, and with the market the way it is today, that $350,000 is non-attainable. We've even tried to go outside of the bond market and went to some banking institutions, got some bids from them. Just not going to fly. But what we think we can accomplish is a savings of a minimum of $200,000. So what we've come up with, what we've talked to Chairman Lohr about, is to amend the resolution that was passed in March to, it would be the same refunding. It would just amend the minimum savings from $350,000 to $200,000. We think within the next 3 to maybe 5 months, we can accomplish a $200,000 savings. But I don't think within that time frame a $350,000 savings is in reach. So the only, I think what Chris is asking for is a resolution be considered at the next council meeting to amend the resolution passed in March to lower the threshold from $350,000 to $200,000, a savings.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, for a resolution to move to the council.
Moved by Councilman Bell.
Second.
Second by Councilman Dennis Cullen. Discussion. Any opposition? So moved. We'll place that on the agenda, Ms. Suzanne.
Thank you.
All right. The only thing I have, Parish President, something was placed in front of me here about Wednesday, June 17th. We want to make an announcement on that so we can get it out to the public.
Yes, this is a revival of the old family meetings that we used to have with businesses and elected officials, and won't do it on a monthly basis like it used to be. It'll be on a quarterly basis, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but I think you'd enjoy it if you come out. And Martha's been putting this together and organizing it, so we appreciate your participation.
It has to do with the Ascension Parish Economic Development family, which is...
That's correct.
Right.
That's the family.
All right, thank you. I
Thank
will
you.
entertain a motion to adjourn by Mr. Lambert. Second by Mr. Johnson. Hearing no opposition, the meeting is adjourned.